In our first 4 lectures, we have looked at the rise of the Athenian democracy, its institutions and values, the great creativity unleashed by freedom in Athens, and the tragedy as an education in freedom. In 431, the Athenian democracy, the Athenian people, that had educated itself for freedom through these tragedies, very intentionally undertook to plunge itself into war with Sparta under the leadership of Pericles. Like many wars, it began with the idea it would be quickly over. In fact, it dragged on for 27 years and ended in the utter defeat and unconditional surrender of Athens. The humiliation of defeat was followed by a period of the overthrow of the democracy and a revolutionary government installed with vicious terror. We turn now to the year 399. The war has been over for 5 years. The democracy has been restored. Athens has even begun to reclaim its place among the powers of Greece. But a deep bitterness remains with the Athenian people, a bitterness directed towards those they see as having led them astray. Alcibiades, the nephew of Pericles, now dead, but hated still by the Athenians. They loved him while he was alive. They could not do without him and his charisma. But he turned out to be a traitor, utterly corrupt. And they blame him as the cause for their defeat. And a second hated individual is Critias, the most bloody-handed of the terrorists who overthrew the democracy. Both Alcibiades and Critias were students of Socrates. And it is to Socrates that we turn now. On this morning in 399, he is standing outside the courtrooms of Athens, about to go on trial for his life. He is 70 years of age. He considers himself the most Athenian of Athenians. He never leaves the city except on military duty, but unlike other Athenians, he also plays no role in politics. The Athenians themselves know what Socrates is. They are clear about what this short, bald, pot-bellied man is. He's a sophist of the worst kind. He makes good arguments seem bad and bad arguments seem good. He utterly corrupts the young, and Alcibiades and Critias are prime examples of this. After all, they have seen this displayed in a comedy by Aristophanes, put on a number of years before, in which Socrates is shown to be a sophist, taking large sums of money for his teaching, and teaching about all kinds of nonsense, such as how you measure the jump of a flea, or whether a gnat blows out air through his nose or his rear end, and utterly corrupting a young man. And the only solution for it in the comedy is for the father of the young man to take over and burn down the think shop of Socrates. So that is who he is, and the jurors already have him in mind. He's alone right now this morning, but suddenly there appears, there at the courtroom as well, a man known somewhat to Socrates, Euthyphro. And he says to Socrates, "What are you doing here? You never serve on juries." And Socrates says, "I'm not serving on juries. I am, in fact, on trial." "What could you be on trial for, Socrates?" "Euthyphro, I am on trial for corrupting the young and for impiety. Being an atheist, not believing in the gods of Athens, but in new and different divinities." "Well, I don't understand that, Socrates." "Neither do I, but why are you here, Euthyphro?" "Why, I am here to bring charges, because in Athens there was no public prosecutor. An individual could bring charges. And a trial, even the most important of trials, lasted only 1 day. And it had to be over by the end of the day. And it was tried by a jury chosen utterly at lot of 501 citizens. So Euthyphro says, "I have in fact brought charges against my father. Charges for murder." "Murder? To bring charges against your own father, he must have murdered your mother." No, in fact, it was a murderer that he let die by negligence. A hired hand killed someone in a drunken brawl. My father had him tied up, went off to get the authorities, and when he came back, the man had died of exposure." "But you're bringing him up on charges of murder, your own father?" "Yes. That is the law, and it is piety to do so." Piety, Euthyphro, that you have just brought something very important up, because I am on trial for impiety. Can you tell me what piety is? Well, I think I know as much about piety as any man, Socrates. Piety is what the gods love. Well, Euthyphro, that is, I think, a very well-known definition of piety. I'm glad to hear it. Tell me something. Do you believe in the stories about the Trojan Wars? Oh, yes, I do. Don't you? Well, no, not really, but we'll come back to that, says Socrates. Tell me this. Aren't some of the gods on one side and some on the other? Some on the side of Troy, some on the side of the Greeks? Well, yes. Well, so then the gods sometimes disagree. Yes. Well, do they disagree about piety? No, Socrates. Let's define it this way. Piety is what all the gods agree upon. Piety is what all the gods love. I see, Euthyphro. Very, very important point. Now, is it pious because the gods love it? Or do the gods love it because it's pious? What? Well, don't you say it's not the same thing to see and to be seen? To carry and to be carried? They're different things. Well, I guess the gods love it because it's pious. See, Euthyphro, then you haven't told me what piety is. You have just given me a characteristic of piety, that the gods love it. Socrates, I'm getting late. I've got to prepare my own case. No, wait, this is very important to me to know what piety is. And you know so much about it, Euthyphro, you are bringing your own father up on charges. Okay, Socrates. Let me help you a little bit, Euthyphro. Would you say that piety is justice? Well, yes, good definition. Well, what part of justice is it? I don't understand. I don't know. Let's take an example. We find a coin on the street. You see it, but I pick it up, and we share it. That's just. But is that really pious? I guess not. Well, would you say that justice is that part, that justice towards the gods is what is piety? In other words, that part of justice which is directed towards the gods is piety. Yes, Socrates. Now, that is a very traditional definition. I see. How can justice be directed towards the gods by men? I'm sorry, Socrates. I mean, what can a man do towards the gods that is just? Well, it makes them happy. I see. So he pleases them, right? Yes, that's it, Socrates. Justice is pleasing the gods, and piety is pleasing the gods. No, we've already had that definition, don't you remember? Justice is what pleases all the gods. Piety is what pleases all the gods. I see. We're back where we started from. Socrates, I can't stay any longer. I must go. But, Euthyphro, you have got to help me with this. You know so much about piety, Euthyphro. Come back. But he hasn't. He's gone away. And so Socrates is left there. He has taken a man who thought he knew everything about piety and was willing to make the most important decisions based upon it, and shown, in fact, that man had never even thought about piety. And now, Socrates goes into the courtroom. Having spent the time he might have used preparing his own case, trying to help another person see what wisdom is. But now, the trial of Socrates has begun. That trial will be captured for us in the apology of his pupil Plato. It is, I'm quite convinced, the words that Socrates spoke at his trial. For Socrates is a teacher. He now writes no books. He would not get tenure in an American university. For him, teaching is a public action. And the very concept of publication is to take something that can never be contained, the search for wisdom, and try to make it concrete. But if we judge a teacher by the quality of his pupils, then Socrates is one of the greatest teachers of all time. For his pupil is Plato, and it has been rightly said that all of philosophy is but a series of footnotes to Plato. And yet Plato pays the highest award to his teacher by putting all of his ideas in the form of a dialogue capturing the way that Socrates taught and attributing them to his teacher. And it is with an audience of students there as he begins his trial, and with a large number of very hostile jurors, that Socrates begins his apology. An apology does not mean saying that you are sorry. It is Socrates speaking forth, saying what his life has been about. And he says, you know, jurors, I cannot even imagine myself from what the prosecutors have just said. They have made me out to be a clever speaking man. And you yourself will know as soon as I begin talking, they are liars. You can hear that I speak in the simple language of the marketplace. And so they have told you many lies about me. And the trouble is, says Socrates, that you have been hearing lies about me for years. And in fact, there are really two sets of accusations against me. The formal accusation that I corrupt the young and that I do not believe in the gods of Athens, but in new and different divinities. But an older set of accusations. Accusations that Socrates is a sophist. You saw it in the play by Aristophanes. And for years, people have gone around saying these kinds of things about me. And it is against them that I must speak first. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's like shadowboxing because my opponents are not here. Let me tell you how all of these stories about me started. They started because I went in search of an answer posed by a statement from God. And the jury begins to shout as they could in Athenian, going, shut up, you atheist, you lie, I don't bring in God's name. No, I have my right to speak. Let me speak. I had a friend, Chaerephon was his name. You know who he was. He was a great defender of the democracy and died fighting for the democracy. He went to the oracle of Apollo at Delphi and said, is any man wiser than Socrates? And the answer came back, no. Socrates is the wisest man. And so when this was reported to me by Chaerephon, I could not imagine what the god meant. So I went to people who were wise, who were reputed to be wise at least. I went to famous politicians, and here he means Pericles, who thought everything could be handled by reason. And I said to this politician and began to question him about wisdom, about politics, about justice, and what is the purpose of the state. And it became clear to me that although he was very, very good at persuading the Athenian people, he had never thought about any of these questions. He had only stock answers. So then I went to the poets. You might think of Sophocles, who thought they were extremely profound in viewing the questions of morality. And I asked, what is morality? And it soon became clear to me that these poets could get all enthusiastic about what they were writing, but they couldn't explain it any better than an ordinary person. So then I went to the ordinary person, who after all is wise enough to make all of these great decisions under our Athenian democracy. And I found that although the person knew a lot about laying bricks or carving a sculpture or whittling wood, they knew nothing about these great questions of what is justice or what is piety. They had never thought about them either. And so what I did was make a lot of people very mad at me because they didn't like being questioned. They didn't like the fact that I did this in public. And so there grew up a great deal of hatred against me. And my friends, you call them students, but they're just friends, they sort of did the same thing, and this also made people angry. And so over the years, 30 years now, a great deal of hatred is built up towards me. And that is the reason I am on trial. I'll show you. Let me bring up the people who have made these charges, Anytus and Melitus. Tell me something, you who have accused me. Do I corrupt the young? Yes, yes he does, men of the jury. He corrupts them surely. Tell me something then. Who makes them better? Does the judge there make them better? Oh, yes. Do the jurymen make them better? Oh, yes. You mean there are 501 jurymen and they all make young people better? Well, yes, that's true. Well, what about the whole of the Athenian citizens? Does every Athenian citizen make them better? Yes. So I am the only person in all of Athens who corrupts the young, and everybody else makes them better. You see, men of the jury, how lightly he takes you. You know yourselves you don't all make them better. Well, let's take another question. You say that I do not believe in the gods of Athens. That is correct. Men of the jury, he does not. Do I believe in any gods? No. He is an atheist, a total, thoroughgoing atheist. Why, he even says that the sun is a piece of red-hot metal. Actually, I've never said that. There's another philosopher who said that. You can get his books right anywhere you want to there in the Agora. I've never said this. And you men of the jury know I have nothing to do with science, as a matter of fact. So, you say, though, that I am an atheist. Yes, he is. Well, tell me something. The rest of the charge says he believes in new and different divinities. Yes. Well, tell me something. What is a divinity? What do you mean? I mean, a divinity, by the name, is a godlike thing, correct? Yes, it's a divine thing, correct? Yes. How can I believe in divinities but not believe in gods? I mean, can you believe in fish and not believe in fishy things? Can you believe in horsey things and not believe in horses? You see, men of the jury, this is an utterly trumped up set of charges. It contradicts itself. Now, you, the juror, might say, maybe so, but Socrates, you've also taken these two perfectly fine men who had brought these charges against them, made them look like fools, turned their arguments totally around. In other words, it looks to me, Socrates, as though you're a sophist, making good arguments seem bad. So Socrates is doing nothing to win the jury over. But then he goes on. No, you know these charges are trumped up, and you know you have me here simply out of this long-standing hatred. Because I have followed the mission given to me by God. God posed this question to me. How can I be wise? The God says no one is wiser than me, but how can I be wise? And from all my questioning, I came up with the answer. I am wise because I know I am not wise. That is wisdom, to know that you are not wise. And so many other people take all of these important actions in the concept that they are wise. No, I have really had a vocation, a calling from God, and it is God who has spoken to me. Then you're going to say to me, men of the jury, well, Socrates, if you are so wise, why aren't you in politics? Why aren't you helping the Athenian democracy? Why haven't you lent your great talent and wisdom to the service of the Athenian democracy? And I'm going to tell you why. Because no honest man can survive in your democracy. Every time I have gotten the idea about going into politics, a little voice has spoken to me, the voice of God inside me, and he has said, stay away from politics. They are utterly corrupt at Athens. And that is certainly not the way to win over a jury. Oh, from time to time I have been forced to be in politics, and each time I have had to stand up for what is right against the majority. Do you remember when you tried the admirals after the great battle at Arginusae? And completely contrary to the legal system, you tried them all at the same time. And I stood up and said, this is wrong. And you wanted to lynch me. No, that is why I have not gone into politics. All right, Socrates, you might say, let's leave aside the question of politics. Aren't you ashamed of acting in such a way that everybody in the city hates you? No, I'm not ashamed. I'm like a gadfly, and you're a big, fat, lazy horse. And I go around, and I sting you, and I make you think. And you get angry at me. But that is my calling from God. He has put me in this place. And the same way that when I was a soldier, I stood my place in battle because my officers told me to, so now I stay here and do what God has given me the mission to do. All right, Socrates, tell you what. We're going to forget about it this time, but you stop all of this philosophizing, this loving of wisdom, going around and questioning us. No, the answer is the same. God has given me this task, and as long as I am here, I will do this. Well, go somewhere else. No, I am in Athens. Only in Athens could I have done this. Do you think the Spartans would let me have done this all of these years? No, this is my home. I am the most Athenian of Athenians. I will not change. I will do what is right. I will do what the voice of God tells me to do. And with this, the jury goes out. They deliberate, and they come back and find Socrates guilty of corrupting the young and of not believing in the gods of Athens. Now that is the first part of the trial. In the second part of the trial, Socrates has a right to propose a penalty, punishment for himself. And he gives another speech. You know, I am surprised at how close I came to being acquitted. I am surprised that many of you actually voted for me. That makes me feel better about my fellow Athenians. So I am going to propose a punishment. Since I have devoted my life to your service, I have no money, but that made him very different than the sophist. He, in fact, took no money for his teaching. I have made no money from my teaching. I have only this worn-out cloak. My children have had a very poverty-ridden upbringing. I am going to make this proposal for a penalty. You should give me free room and board for the rest of my life. Well, you do that for Olympic victors. They have done far less good for the city than have I. And now the crowd, the jurors are just furious. And they are, how dare he shows up contempt for us? We're the jurors of Athens. What? And then one of his students come up and he listens to them and says, well, all right. My students have suggested that I should propose, instead of free room and board, that I pay a fine. And in modern currency, it would be about $210,000. It's a substantial fine. I propose that, and even though I myself have no money, these people will stand as security for it. Why does Socrates propose this substantial fine? Because he is giving the Athenians a choice. They can't let us say we would let him off if he had really given us a reasonable alternative. No, they have a reasonable alternative. And now they go back and deliberate and come back with an even larger majority to put Socrates to death. Well, you think you have gained something, men of Athens, by sentencing me to death. All you have done is shame yourself. You can never harm me. You can kill me. But the only way you could harm me is by making me take an unjust act. And that I will not do. So kill me. And what is death anyway? It's either one of two things. Either it's just eternal sleep, or we are told, to the underworld. Well, sleep. Can you imagine a night where you have not had a dream or been waked up? Why, the king of Persia with all his wealth can't buy such a night of sleep. And if we really go to the underworld, I can't wait. Why, Agamemnon is down there, Achilles, Ajax, all these people I want to question. What a time I will have. And now it is time for you to go away and me to die. Which is better is known to the gods alone. So in his apology, his last sentence is to invoke the gods, a sign of his deep, deep piety. Plato devoted the first 4 dialogues he wrote to this trial of Socrates, the Euthyphro to his questioning of Euthyphro and spending his last moments before the trial trying to help another person find wisdom, to the apology. And then in the Crito, Socrates is already in jail. And his friends come to him with a very, very, very well laid plan for his escape. He won't go. That would be to break the law. He has been legally sentenced, and he must stay and die. To escape, to run away, would be truly to corrupt the young, because it would say Socrates really doesn't believe in the laws. And so then it comes to his final moments. And in the dialogue, the Phaedo, Socrates spends that time with his pupils talking about the immortality of the soul. And in it, if you follow the dialogue carefully, though Socrates brings forth many, many reasons and arguments for the immortality of the soul, at the end, he tells us it is a matter of faith. Ultimately, we must take that leap of faith to believe that the soul is immortal. And fair is the prize for that leap of faith. And so, having sent away his wife and children, spending just that last moment with his friends, the jailer comes in and tells Socrates he can take as long as he wants to drink off the hemlock. Instead, Socrates says, let's drink it down right now. Why wait? Why tarry? It is time. His friends have asked him why he didn't publish more. And he says, you know, I had a dream about that just very recently. The gods said, make music, Socrates. And I thought they meant write poetry, publish. So I tried a few verses. Here they are, and they were excellent. But I realized that my making music was my life itself. Just questioning and teaching. That was how I made music. And so he makes music to the end. He drinks the hemlock, a kind word for his jailer, walks around the way the jailer tells him to do until the poison begins to take effect, and then lies down, the feeling going out of his legs, and pulls the cover over his head, lies there still, and then suddenly pulls the cover back down and said, oh, by the way, friend, I owe a cock to Asclepius. His final words, a ritual traditional sacrifice of a rooster to the god of healing, for having cured him of all of these earthly pains and worries by death. So the man that the Athenians have put to death for impiety is the most pious of all the Athenians, and so died. Plato wrote, that man who of all the men of our times was the wisest, the most just, and the best. Now the Athenian democracy put him to death. And I tell you right now, the decision from the point of view of the Athenian democracy was correct. Because you see, Socrates taught an inner voice, the freedom of conscience, the idea that the individual is the ultimate judge of what is right and wrong, and that is completely destructive of a democracy based on majority rule. The Athenians understood the danger inherent in Socrates' teaching. It was not a democracy based upon rampant individualism, but liberty under law. And yet, it also damned the Athenian democracy for ages to come. Plato, Aristotle, right down to the founders of our country, would see in the trial and execution of Socrates a perversion of justice by the majority, which robbed it of its greatest citizen. And yet we might ask if there's another side to this test case. For no other city in Greece brought forth a Socrates. For 70 years he lived there. For a good part of that he taught and questioned every value. Only Athens and its democracy and its intellectual creativity could have made possible a Socrates. And he was so right in seeing himself as the most Athenian of Athenians. Next time we will look forth to a new age of freedom, burgeoning under one of the greatest individuals in all of history, a man who said if he couldn't be an Alexander, he would want to be a man like Socrates or Diogenes.